Hello viewers, welcome to K Diagnostics Dio here. Today we have a 2014 VW Passat. This vehicle came to us from a collision center. This vehicle was in a crash and the front end was completely smashed. So they repaired it. As you can see, it looks really good. You can't tell that this vehicle was in a collision. The problem with this vehicle is that the check engine light is remaining on while the engine is running. So they brought it to me so I can figure out why the check engine light is remaining on. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go inside the vehicle and confirm the complaint. We're going to start the engine and see if the check engine light will remain on while the engine is running. After confirming the complaint, then we will connect a scan tool to the vehicle to see what kind of trouble codes we have in the engine memory. So now let's go inside the vehicle and confirm the complaint. So now I'm gonna start the engine so we can confirm the customer's complaint. So right there, as you can hear, the engine is running. And this dashboard has a lot of lights on it. It looks like a Christmas tree. But we're here to fix the check engine light that's remaining on, so we're gonna focus on that. So right there, as you can see, the check engine light is remaining on while the engine is running. So customer's complaint confirmed. So check engine light remains on, so that's good. So now I'm gonna get a scan tool connected to the vehicle so we can scan the engine computer. So now I'm gonna turn off the engine. I'm gonna turn the key back on. I'm gonna get a scan tool connected to the vehicle and then I'll bring you guys back up. So the scan tool is done scanning all the modules. So let's list all these modules here. So right here, as you can see, we have 3 trouble codes in the engine module. The first trouble code is ambient air temperature sensor circuit. And the other one is ambient air temperature sensor circuit range / performance. And then the other one is ECM / PCM power relay de-energized performance too early. Interesting. So the first code here is P0070. And then the other one is P0071. So it looks like there is something wrong with the ambient air temperature sensor or the circuit of the sensor. Okay. And then in the transmission module, we got some wheel speed sensor fault codes. So here it says speed signal from rear left ABS wheel sensor. Please read DTC. Okay, so this thing has a bunch of trouble codes. We're not going to go through all these modules and read all these codes. We're going to do what we are told. I will print out all these trouble codes and give them to the customer, but we're going to focus on the engine module. So let's click on this arrow over here so we can go into the engine control unit. So let's go to codes. Okay, so we got 3 trouble codes, the same ones we just read. P0070 and then P0071 and then P068A. Okay, I'm going to go after this ambient air temperature sensor circuit code because knowing that this vehicle was in a collision, the front end was smashed, so I'm pretty sure there's probably something wrong with the sensor or maybe the wiring of the sensor because this vehicle came from a collision center. So now what I want to do is let's see if this code is going to come back after I erase it. Knowing that these are the codes we have and we're going to go after this ambient air temperature sensor code, what I want to do is I want to erase these codes and we're going to scan the engine module again to see which code comes back. Whichever code that comes back first will be the one we're going to address. Okay, so let's go back to codes. So right there, no trouble codes. So I'm going to start the engine. So let's look at the dash. As you can see right now, the check engine light went off because I erased the trouble codes. So let's bring our scan tool back up here. Now, while the engine is running, let's see if we have any trouble code that came back. So no trouble codes. So let's back out. Actually, while the engine is running, what I want to do is I want to go to service info and look at the ambient air temperature sensor and see how it's wired. I'm pretty sure the computer sends 5 volt on one wire, so it's a 2-wire sensor. The computer sends 5 volt on one wire, and then the other wire is a signal, so that voltage goes from the computer down to the sensor, and then the sensor pulls that voltage to ground, okay, because there's a resistor in the sensor that changes the resistance based on the temperature outside, and then the voltage travels through the sensor and then it comes out through the signal wire and then it goes back to the computer. So whatever voltage that the computer sees on that signal wire, that's how it knows the temperature of the outside temperature, okay? So if it sends out 5 and then it sees 2 or 3 volts, and then there are thresholds in the computer programming, based on the voltage it's gonna see, it will know what temperature it will correspond to, okay? So let's go to service info and look this up really quickly. I scrolled up and down these pages of this HVAC wiring diagram. I cannot find the ambient temperature sensor on these wiring diagrams, okay? So something is wrong. It's either got left out or something, I don't know. So I know that the ambient air temperature sensor is usually in front of the vehicle behind the front bumper, and the HVAC control unit should control that ambient air temperature sensor, okay? Now what I want to do is, I can't find it on this wiring diagram, unfortunately. So now what I want to do is I am going to go back to our scanner. Let's see if we got any data PIDs over here for the ambient air temperature sensor. So let's see if there's any data for the ambient air temperature sensor. Okay, so right here, ambient temp. So we're gonna select that. I want to see if there's a voltage data PID, because this PID over here that we selected is showing us 15 degrees, which is wrong because the outside temperature is not 15 degrees, okay? So this here tells me that we either have a problem with the sensor or a problem with the wiring, okay? We can have an open in the wire because this sensor is a thermistor, and most thermistors, when you have an open in the circuit, you will read cold temperatures, okay? Or a sensor could be open internally. So I'm pretty sure we're dealing with either a defective sensor or an open in the wire. And since this vehicle came from a collision center, I'm pretty sure we might be dealing with a open in the wire. So that will be the only PID that we have. So we're gonna show only that one PID. Okay, so let's graph that. As you can see, on the ambient temperature, we're showing 15 degrees, which is not true because the inside temperature of the shop right now is about 70 or 72 degrees. So this is wrong. So now let's go back to our codes. Let's see if the ambient temperature sensor code came back. So it didn't come back. Okay, let me start the engine again. So the engine is running. Right there, as you can see, the check engine light is now remaining on again. The check engine light came back on. So let's scan this again and see what we got. That's weird. We don't have any trouble codes in memory, but the check engine light came on. This is interesting. So let me turn the key on. Let's back out of here. Maybe we have to get out of the engine computer and see what's gonna happen. So right there, the same trouble code came back. So let's go to codes. Okay, so as you can see, the same trouble codes came back. Okay, now in this video, I'm not gonna deal with this ECM/PCM power relay de-energized performance too early code, but I'm going to deal with this ambient air temperature sensor circuit code. Okay, this code that says ambient air temperature sensor circuit range/performance. So we're gonna deal with these two codes right now, and then we will deal with this one later. But let's deal with these two codes first. So remember, I erased the trouble codes. The check engine light was off, but now as you can see, the check engine light is remaining on. So since we have a code about the ambient air temperature sensor, what I want to do is I want to take you guys with me outside. We're going to look around the front of the vehicle to see if we can see this ambient air temperature sensor. If we can see it, we're going to do our test at the ambient air temperature sensor electrical connector to see if there's voltage at the sensor. Okay, so now let's go to the front of the vehicle and locate this ambient air temperature sensor. So I got the vehicle up in the air. So from experience, the ambient temperature sensor usually lives over here in front of the radiator. Actually, I can see the bracket for it right here. I don't know if you can see it. The sensor lives right here, but as you can see, the sensor is missing. Okay, the sensor is supposed to clip in there, so that's where the ambient air temperature sensor goes to. But as you can see, the sensor is MIA. Okay, the sensor is missing, so we gotta find out what happened. I don't know if they forgot to install the sensor, but I'm going to lift up the vehicle a little bit higher so we can look underneath and see if we can find the sensor itself or the wires for the sensor. All right, so as you can see, we are missing the ambient temperature sensor, which is supposed to go up there on that bracket. Okay, now here is our cooling fan, and oh, check this out. We have a wire hanging over here. Okay, so I mean, it's a 2-wire sensor, but we only have 1 wire here. So is this the ambient temperature sensor wire or what? So I'm not sure, but let's keep looking around. I mean, the wire can be on the passenger side, so it has to be over here on the driver's side. So let's see. Let's open up this harness. Oh, check this out. We have another wire. So 2 broken wires. I'm pretty sure these are the wires for the ambient temperature sensor. Okay. Well, the sensor is missing, the wires are broken, so that's what we got. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have to get the sensor for it and the electrical connector for the sensor, and then we're gonna fix these wires. So we're gonna have to extend these wires, basically run the wires from here all the way up this way, up here, and then around the radiator, and then up here, okay, up here to the front of the vehicle. All right, so I'm gonna turn off the camera. I'm gonna call the VW dealership and see if I can get this sensor and the connector. So since I could not find the ambient temperature sensor on my wiring diagram, I'm gonna call my friend at the VW dealership and see if he can provide me the wiring diagram where the ambient temperature sensor is gonna be in, so I can see which wire goes on what side of the sensor, okay? Because it looks like this one is a brown wire with a blue tracer, and then the other one looks like a brown wire with a yellow tracer. Okay, so I'm gonna get the sensor. As you can see, the sensor is definitely missing. I'm gonna get a sensor from VW and the wiring. Once I get everything, I'll bring you guys back up so we can install the sensor and then see if this will fix the ambient temperature sensor problem. Okay, so I will do that and then I'll bring you guys back up. So I got the ambient temperature sensor from VW and the connector for it and the wires for the ambient temperature sensor. So here is the connector for the ambient temperature sensor, okay, and then here is the sensor itself. So this is our sensor. Okay, so now let's go install the sensor on the vehicle first, and then we're gonna prep this connector and get it connected to the vehicle. Okay, so we're gonna basically connect these wires to the wiring harness on the vehicle. Okay, let's go install this sensor first. All right, so our sensor is gonna go right here. All right, so we got the sensor installed. So now we're gonna fix the wiring. So I'm going to lengthen these wires over here so they can reach the sensor over there. Okay, so I'm gonna get another set of wires and make these wires longer, and I will get the connector ready so we can connect all these wires together and get this sensor connected. We're gonna lengthen these wires so they can reach the sensor. So we're gonna use these shrink butt connectors to connect this wire to the other wire that I have on this side of the butt connector. And I love using these butt connectors because they seal the wire very well after you heat them up. Okay, so we're gonna crimp the wires together. All right, so I crimped these two wires together, so everything looks good. So now I'm going to use a lighter to shrink this. So now I'm gonna tip this up. All right, so now I'm gonna extend this wire. So I'm gonna use the same butt connector here. Okay, so we're gonna extend this one just like we did with the first one. So I crimped this second wire. So now I'm going to use our lighter and shrink this butt connector. All right, so now I'm gonna tip this butt connector up Okay, so it's taped up and ready to go, so that's good. So we have taped these wires up, so now we're gonna reinsert the wires in the wire loom over here. So I'm gonna tape this up. So here is the wire and the connector that we got from the dealer. Okay, so as you can see, the wire is fixed. So this connector is gonna go over here at the sensor. Okay, so that's gonna go right there, and then our wire is gonna come over here. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to put this wire into a wire loom, and then we're gonna route it very well up here. I can zip tie it up there against this plastic cover so it can be completely out of the way. I'm gonna put it on the wire loom and then I'll bring you guys back up. So now I'm gonna show you the finished product. So I'll put that wiring in this wire loom. So here is our wire, and right there it goes to the sensor. So the sensor is connected, everything looks good, so we're good to go. Okay, so now we're gonna lower the vehicle and erase the trouble codes. We're gonna start the vehicle and let it run for 2 to 5 minutes to see if the check engine light will come back on. I'm pretty sure after fixing this, our ambient temperature sensor trouble code will no longer come back. Okay, so this is fixed. So now I'm gonna lower the vehicle so we can verify our repair, and then we will wrap up this video. I'm gonna start the engine. So as you can see, the engine is running and the check engine light is off, so that's good. So I'm gonna turn the engine off, key on. So we're gonna erase the trouble codes, and then we will let the engine run and see if our ambient temperature sensor code will come back. So let's click yes. So we are erasing the DTCs right now. So right there, no trouble codes are detected. So that's good. Now I want to look at the data, and I want to look at the ambient temperature sensor data PID. Let's see if there will be a change on that data PID. So right here. Well, it changed a little bit, but it didn't change all the way. Now it's showing 17.2. Oops. I'm sorry for the glare, guys. It was showing 15. Now it's showing 17.2. I don't know if this is Celsius or Fahrenheit. Let me see if I can change this unit. Oh no, not here. Well, this is probably Celsius because this is not Fahrenheit. Anyways, so I'm gonna get the scan tool out of here. Actually, let's back out and scan the engine module again. So right there, as you can see, we don't have any fault codes in the engine computer. So let's do a fault scan. So the scan tool is done scanning all the modules. As you can see, we have trouble codes in these other modules, but not in the engine computer. So if we list this, you will see that it says the engine control module has passed. So there are no fault codes in the engine module. So I'm gonna start the engine. So So the engine is running. I'm gonna get the scan tool out of the way. Alright, so we're gonna let the engine idle for a couple minutes, and then we will check to see if the check engine light will come back on. If it doesn't, we'll wrap up this video. I'm pretty sure it won't. So, and right now I can already notice that it's starting to show the temperature over here on the dash, which it wasn't showing before. Okay, so let's let the engine idle for a little longer, and then I'll bring you guys back up so we can wrap up this video. So the engine has been running for a couple minutes now, and as you can see, the check engine light did not come back on. Okay, so this is fixed. I don't have to take this for a test drive. I'm just going back and forth here in the shop. So this is good. Okay, so I'm sure the check engine light is now gonna come back on because we fixed the problem. The problem was a missing ambient temperature sensor, and the wiring was broken. We fixed the wiring, we installed a new sensor, so we're good to go. Actually, I can bring up our scan tool again so we can check it. Remember before, the check engine light came back really fast, but right now the check engine light is not coming back on, so which tells me that this is fixed. Okay, so if we go to codes, as you can see, we don't have any trouble codes, and the check engine light is still off. So this is fixed, guys. So now I'm gonna turn off the engine so we can wrap up this video. So I'm gonna leave it right over here. I hope you liked this video. If you did like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give it a thumb down. But if you do, you gotta tell me why so we can make better videos in the future. If this is your first time here, subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell so you can get notified every time I upload a new video. If you have any comments, questions, criticism, leave them in the comment box. Thanks for watching. See you next time.